I was still correct in being angry. So why am I feeling guilt and shame around feeling anger? Well, because I did it too much and all these things. So now I'm too scared to show anger again. Because I remember the last time that I did it. And then everyone looked at me like there was something wrong with me. I might have even got some words. So you know what? There, I got the proof. I did exactly, I've allowed myself to recreate or reaffirm the belief that my anger is not okay.
Ian, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
Absolute pleasure. I guess a good place to start would be, what has brought you to this moment in time? What are you doing in Bali? And we'll go from there, really.
Start with the hard questions first, right? If I'm going to be completely honest, what brought me to Bali was that I was completely lost. I didn't realize it at the time. I thought I had my life in order and stuff like that. I was a hydrographic surveyor, so I used to map the ocean for a living.
Map the ocean?
Yeah. So I used to go out on the boats and do you remember MH370, that missing Malaysian airplane?
Yeah.
I was one of the guys looking for that. Spent a couple of years
Wow.
out at sea. Yeah.
What was that like?
Oh man, it was pretty crazy. There is nothing out there. The closest thing to us was Amsterdam Island. That was 1,000 kilometers away, something like that.
Well, for some people, that's their idea of just absolute peace and blissfulness, right?
I found it pretty good. I liked being out at sea. I liked being out in the crazy elements and we had some big storms out there, like 13, almost 14-meter waves.
Was it a scary thing, or did you always know you were going to be fine?
I think I'm one of those people that doesn't quite understand consequences. So, I understood that, hey, this is a serious situation, but I didn't feel scared about it,
Right,
you know?
okay.
I was like, oh, whoa. Yeah, I mean, yeah, our boat almost flipped during the night, one night. Let me take a step back and kind of explain, we had this 8-kilometer fiber optic cable with a little submarine on the back, and we just tow this up and down, essentially mowing the lawn for months on end, surveying the bottom, trying to see where we could find this airplane. The problem is what that is essentially is a massive anchor. So you got to pull that in when a storm's coming.
Oh, I see.
And this massive storm came through and it was going in one direction. And then the very last second, like all good storms do, it changed course and it went straight for us. And we're like, oh shit. Tried to reel the stuff in, couldn't reel it in time. So we just had to leave it out. And so we were stuck in this massive storm. It wasn't that bad. It was 10, 11 meter waves. But it hit us in the middle of the night and I was on night shift. Right, I'm just sitting there reading a book because you can't do any work, right? The massive storm and, everything, a wave hits and everything kind of falls off. It's oh, that was pretty bad. Look at the angle, it's 40 degrees, that's pretty bad. And then it rolls back and everything kind of falls back the same way. And then a second wave hit and this one, the boat went all the way. And this boat was an ex-Norwegian Coast Guard vessel. So it was designed for the North Sea and saving lives. So its list angle was massive. It was 46 degrees or something. But once it reaches past that, it's not coming back. And I think it hit 45.5 or 45.6 or something.
Whoa.
Everything on this boat fell over. I think all the captain and the party chief and everything, they must have fallen out of bed. Because a minute later, everyone in importance up on the deck, what's going on? What's the angle stuff? And I'm putting my guitar and my book away,
Nothing.
It was a 45 point. That was pretty serious.
Damn. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds like living.
Yeah. I was happy doing that. And that's kind of where it started going wrong. Was after I finished. We hired too many people for this job. So they hired 13 of us from my class. Essentially, they hired an entire class to come and work on this project. And that's the entirety of hydrographic surveyors for that year. It's insane. One company just took them all. But they didn't have enough work for all of us to be working all the time. So I got to spend almost 200 days at sea. And then they're like, okay, that's enough for you for 6 months. They just put me in an office and I had nothing to do, nothing. Yeah, and that's when I realized the worst possible thing that you can do I like to think men in general, but especially kind of men like me, is to take away any sort of purpose. It will pay you a shit ton of money, but you're just going to sit there and there's no purpose. There's no reason for you to be here. You just have to be here. Yeah, and it
Right.
destroyed my mental health, like that.
Just like that.
Oh man! Within the space of 6 months, I went from like living the dream of being like an adventurer to being like, I actually it got to the point where I was just sitting in the office, and I think I'd just broken up with my girlfriend at the time, and I was kind of like looking at the computer screen, and I was like, I don't want to be here anymore, like at all, like not even on this planet. Like I was like, I don't want to be here.
Oh,
And I went,
wow.
oh shit! Literally got up immediately, went to the HR and said, hey, sorry, I quit. I got to go. Like, this is bad. They're like, no, you can't just quit. I'm like, I don't care. Packed up all my shit and went back home. Like I left Australia within like 2 days of that. I was like, nope, not fucking around with this. I know what this is.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So you didn't even think about what's next. You were just like, I just know it's not here.
I just knew that I knew that I was about to hit a crisis. Yeah, it was crazy. Like I knew that this was different to like a normal thing, and
Right.
it was a good call because like I actually did mentally collapse. Like
So did the end of the relationship coincide with the end of the job then? Or are these
I
different?
think it was like the straw that kind of broke the camel's back. I think there was just like an accumulative,
Okay.
and I think that's what it always kind of happens when you see these people that finally just break. You go, it wasn't that. That was just the final thing. Like, how long have you been holding on to this pain?
Right. Okay.
Yeah,
So it was a string of different events, right? And
yeah.
do you think, like looking back, there were quite a lot of stuff which just wasn't really dealt with, perhaps, and then it sort of
Oh
caught up with you?
man.
Or...
Well, that kind of all came up when I came to Bali. Like, I didn't realize it at the time. At the time, I was like, no, it's this girl and it's this job. And then I went back home and I essentially had a mental breakdown. I had to relearn how to brush my teeth. Like, I went to nothing, just sleeping in bed all day for months, to being like, okay, it's enough. Learn how to make my bed again, then brush my teeth again, then go for walks, then, like bit by bit rebuild myself up, became a freelance hydrographic surveyor, and then came to Bali and I was like, I'm good. I did my work. I've managed to overcome this thing. Like all these weirdos in Ubud that are trying to find themselves, I'm not one of them. Yeah, but Bali has a way of mirroring what you need to see.
So how did you get to that point? Because you've had this sort of mental breakdown, right? What led you to, was it just you heard that Bali had the answers, or how did you sort of piece that together? And how did you even have the motivation to do that? Because I was discussing on the pod recently as well with Aaron, because he went through, sort of a terrible accident and then came through that. And we're talking about sort of depression. And for him, it was a sense of, right, there's a loss of purpose here. There's that former sort of identity, or there's a former place where you sort of wanted to go, and you're thinking about where that would have gone. And when that shatters, that's what sort of can cause it, right? So I wonder, sort of in your case, right, it was that job, it was that relationship. Once that goes, how do you go from that point to sort of rediscovering yourself, and what led you to sort of Bali, if that makes sense?
It's so funny that he says that because, like, for the longest time, that's kind of how I understood depression as well. Was that, like, there was who I am and who I thought I was. And, at some point they were pretty close. But then over the decades, maybe I tell a few lies to myself and I start separating. And then at some point, the gap between who I am and who I think I am is so big that if I was to realize, I would have just killed myself straight away. It would have been too devastating to handle. And that's kind of what causes the depression is you realize your body goes, it's not safe for you to feel. So we're going to cut all feelings off so that you can begin to process that you're not who you think you are. And that's kind of what the process was. And so, I realized like, hey, I used to be this very active, very driven guy. I used to be an adventurer. I used to want to take chances. And now I'm just living corporate hell. And so part of my journey was I really didn't have a plan. I just knew I wanted to kind of get back to what were the things that used to make me feel alive. Because nothing made me, I didn't feel good doing any of this stuff. I just knew that I had to, right? My personal preferences and feelings at this point just didn't count. I didn't trust myself in any sort of way. My brain has betrayed me. So I'm just going to do what I think is correct, and hopefully in the future it'll turn out, and it just so happened to be. But one of them was, I had this idea forever when I was like, since I was 14 years old, 15 years old, when I first started surfing, that I'm going to go and live in Hawaii. And I'm going to go and surf these epic waves and, date these beautiful women that always wear bikinis. Like, this was like, so that was my plan. I was like, I got mentally stable enough, and I started feeling like I'm capable of working again. And then I started Googling how to get a job in Hawaii. And it turns out that it's extraordinarily hard to work in Hawaii. Like, it's very expensive. I'd have to get a green card because I'm from New Zealand. The process was like massive. And then I kind of looked across and it's like, hey, but Bali I don't need a green card. I can actually just go and like visit there. And so I was freelancing at the time. I had a lot of free time, and I used to be a dive master. So I was like, why don't I go to Bali as finish my dive instructors, kind of like check it out. So that's what kind of led me to Bali. Yeah,
Okay.
like it was never a well planned out endeavor. It just kind of happened. And I spent the first 6 months in Sanur, which, like, for anyone that doesn't understand, like, there are different towns and villages in Bali, and Sanur is where all the old retired men go. So like the average age of men in Sanur was like 60 something. The average age of women was like 20, but they're all poor like Indonesian girls that are,
Right.
it's a very different type of Bali to Canggu or Uluwatu or Kuta or any of these other places. And at one point we drove across to Canggu for a weekend to celebrate someone's birthday.
Who's we, sorry?
The dive instructors and stuff that I was with.
Right.
And I found, thank you, sorry. Yeah, and it was really interesting because suddenly found Canggu. It's a little bit different to what it was now, but I was like, oh my God, this is where everyone that's our age, kind of like from like 25 until like 40, 45, like the people that didn't just immediately go into working in some sort of safe corporate job. Like, where did they go? I didn't know, right? I really felt alone at that point. And then I came to Canggu, and suddenly there's all these people, and they're like, I want to build my own business. I want to be my own person. Yeah.
Oh, what the thing that drew you to Bali in the first place, it had nothing to do with what you've just described there?
Yeah, I didn't know. That was what I was saying. Like, I
Wow.
had no idea how lost I truly was. At that point, I totally thought, I've figured it out, Like, as far as society is concerned, like, I'm back to functioning. I'm earning decent money again. I'm doing these high-profile jobs again. So you're good. Tick. Cool. And then I got to Bali, and suddenly I realized, especially when I came to Canggu, that there was something off. Yeah, and that's kind of what made me stay. I was like, there's something here that I can see and I can feel that's for the first time, like I could see something. I just didn't know what it was. Yeah.
Well, it's breaking that illusion, right? Because you were just ticking those boxes, but you weren't really ticking your boxes. You were ticking what you think your boxes were, right? What society tells you that you should have. That's really interesting. So you've come...
And scary.
Well, yes, definitely, because your whole perception of the world is just challenged and almost sort of broken down. And I'm so passionate about this. That's why I'm even thinking of writing a book called like Breaking the Illusion, because how many times are we just distracted or just completely unaware of what goes on behind the scenes and how much more to life there is. But so often we're just conditioned to believe a certain perception of the world, and I'm really passionate about that.
Oh, man. I mean, you've got to give kind of like a context of the timeline of the world at this point as well. Like, I legitimately thought I was going insane because I had all these thoughts in my head that just didn't align with what I was seeing. And I was trying to have conversations with my friends, and they were just like I was speaking gibberish. And then this was exactly at the time when Jordan Peterson released that first 12 Rules for Life book. And I had no idea who this Jordan Peterson guy was, right? But I was trying to have these conversations with my friends. They're like, oh, mate, you've been listening to this Jordan Peterson guy. And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, dude, you're literally quoting Jordan Peterson. I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. And then I Like I read his book and I see some things and I go, oh my God, like someone else is saying exactly what I was saying. Like I'm not crazy, or maybe I'm not crazy,
Wow.
right? Yeah, we're like, I knew that there was something more. I just couldn't find it. There was like, I knew that there was something wrong. And it was only when I came to Bali and I saw all these, like thousands of people that are all living a completely different way. I'm not sure if you call it quite conscious. Like they want to be conscious, but there were a lot more people that were, at least to a certain degree, more conscious of the illusions of our modern society.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think now when you're here, you kind of, yeah, I don't know how you sort of cultivate that awareness. Maybe it is just from stepping back and going out of that societal bubble, right? And yeah, I wonder, was there anything in particular from Jordan Peterson's book that really made you think, okay, this is it. This is what this makes sense to me. This is the thing that, yeah, that that's what I resonate with.
It's probably the most cliche one, and I think it's the main message that he keeps trying to repeat when he defends kind of against the more extreme criticisms, which is essentially just you need to take responsibility for your life. You need to fucking make your bed, which was the first thing I started doing when I started coming out of my breakdown, right? Like, even to this day, right? My house back home is a bit of a mess, but my bed is made. Like, every day I wake up and I make my bed because that was the rock that got me out of depression and out of mental health problems. And it was this idea that you are responsible for yourself and for your life. And I think the grand illusion, the one that I still struggle with to this day, is this victim mindset. Yeah, it's so easy to revert back. It's so easy to shift a situation, and it's clever and it's nuanced, right? Like it's not as like a basic like oh poor me. It's like, no, how do I take on responsibility, but in a way that's guilt-ridden, so that technically I am actually a victim again, even though I'm trying to take on responsibility. Yeah. So it's like a process, eh? It's not linear.
Yeah, and again, I think it's so important, right? Because I presume if you had stayed in that victim mindset, which is very, again, like you said, so easy to do, but once you stay in that frame of mind, it's like, well, okay, this is happening to me, society's unfair, or they did this. It's like, how are you gonna be able to change your world if you're giving that power to them, right? That's why I think it's just so important. So, I guess in your case, it was like, right, okay, I actually have the power to change this just by one step at a time. Was that your thought process? Just like, right, make my bed, and then how did you develop from there? Was it just building up some very small wins over time, or how do you pull yourself out of that?
I would love to say that it was like an intentional process. I think every human has an innate intelligence within them, especially to stay alive. And at this point, my ego had been completely and utterly destroyed. The masks that I'd been wearing for 25 years came crumbling down, and I was completely vulnerable. But on the plus side, I was also very, very able to just listen to my intuition. So there was no books at that point to read to tell me about this. There was no YouTube. Like YouTube was still an infancy. I can't even say the word. In its infancy. Yeah. I'm a copywriter and I can't even speak English. Yeah, and so I didn't have anyone to talk to. I just had to trust myself. And I didn't tell my friends what I was doing. They knew something was very wrong. They knew to just give me the space and not question anything I did. But I remember like I woke up and I walked down to the beach. My parents' house is right by the beach, so it was a 5-minute walk, and I watched the sunrise. And I went, wow, that feels really good. And I feel like today's a good day. I went, okay, every day now, you're going to wake up and you're going to see that sunrise. And then I started, it was Snapchat back then, so I would Snapchat my friends the sunrise. I didn't explain it to them, but it's every day. I just Snapchat all of them the sunrise. And that was kind of how I was holding myself accountable. Yeah, and I just slowly, and then one of my friends said, hey, like, good job. Like, I missed a day or something. And my friend said, I'm so gutted. It's actually one of my highlights of my day. And I went, ooh. I gotta keep doing this. So then I would start walking as well, because I'd have a cup of tea, watch the sunrise, and then kind of, I got nothing else to do. I'm not working. So then I started going for a walk. And then I would Snapchat me going for a walk. And then my friends would say, man, it's so cool to see you every day doing this. So, oh, okay. And then I'd started running. And then next thing you know, I'm running 15 kilometers in the mountains, because it's amazing how, it really like progresses like this. And then at some point it just exponentially jumps. So I went from really like my day involved waking up, making my bed, brushing my teeth. And then I was allowed to go climb back into bed. That was the deal. You just make the bed, you brush your teeth, and then if all you want to do is climb back into bed and sleep for the rest of the day, it's okay. You've done enough, right? That was my day for months. Just suddenly, within the space of like 2-3 months, from that to I'm running in the mountains, sky running is what they call it, like pushing myself as hard as I can. And then I was like, I think I can work. And then within another month or two, I was working on one of the biggest surveying projects in New Zealand. And
Wow.
Yeah, it's incredible how it was just more the consistency and just a little bit of reinforcement from the outside.
Well, yeah, I think that's how you can reprogram your brain, right? It's by doing daily daily things, and then doing them repetitively and consistently, right? Even if, like you said, it's just those small things at the beginning of the day. I wonder how important then having that network of friends was to you, because whether it was intentional or not, they kind of held you accountable, and you then had to prove something to someone else, right? It sounds like that was a big part of your journey.
Yeah, and it kind of goes against a lot of what you hear these days. I always kind of like give a little bit of a side glance when they're like, you shouldn't use external, it's all supposed to be internal, like you're supposed to love yourself, and it's all supposed to be internal validation and nothing external. And just in my experience, like it's just not true. And it doesn't make sense anyway. We're social creatures. Like we're hardwired to fit in to a certain degree and to want to be part of the tribe. I was just very selective of who my tribe was. Yeah. And yeah, I've gone through a lot of hard times since, but never collapsed mentally again. And the number one reason why I would say is that I kind of learned that it was like 100% necessary to have a network of friends that I opened up to. Because up until that point, I didn't tell anyone anything. I was getting horrendously abused from like 10 different angles. And I just thought that if I could just handle it on my own, I was being a man, right?
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm guilty of that in my own life as well. It's one of the biggest takeaways I've had even recently was that it's okay to have other people ground you sometimes, whereas I've always been in the headspace just like, right, I know my shit. Yeah, I'll get my shit together, and it's like, okay, right, I have a girlfriend, but it's fine. I'll do it myself. And actually, it's just so easy to do that. And I think you've touched upon such a great point there. Just reach out to people. I think for some people it might be difficult. I know some people I've spoken to, they have been quite hesitant to reach out because they feel like they're a burden or that type of thing. But it's just bullshit, right? Because it's like, no, come on, just I'm here. Just if you need help, just reach out. I think that's the most important thing. And even Aaron was saying as well, the number one thing you should do if you've hit that bottom place is just get help. Just get help, reach out to people. And like you said, I think just finding the right tribe as well is super important. I wonder how you found the right people in your life. How have you sort of filtered them out? Because I feel like it does take a while to get there, right?
Oh man, the filtering process. I am in the filtering process as we speak. Yeah, it's funny. Like I honestly only really feel like my journey is just beginning. Like, it sounds a little bit like I even feel a little bit guilt or shame around even saying it. I'm just like, no, I feel like this is only the start. Like, oh, you just wait and you'll see, because for the first time I'm starting to understand really boundaries, especially boundaries in the context of personal responsibility, because, and this this will make sense around why I'm filtering now, is I used to think that boundaries was you aren't allowed to do this, because because I don't want you to do this, right? And then someone would overstep your boundary and you'd be like, you're a dick because you overstood my boundary, right? I'm trying to control your behavior. And it's only in the last couple of years that I've really kind of clicked. I mean, that's giving an external person power. The real boundary is, I don't personally like this sort of behavior. And if you continue to do that behavior, I will change my behavior. Whether that's removing myself or maybe having a few words with you, or, it depends on how bad the transgression is. Maybe things get a little bit more heated, but it's all me and what I'm going to do around myself, around my boundaries. And as I've come to kind of really let that idea dig itself deep within my, psyche and my ego and my sense of self, I start to look at my interactions with a lot of people. And I start to go, I've never been okay, really, with your behavior. But I've been adapting myself to try and, because I've tried to tell you, and you've gone, yeah, cool. And then not changed anything. And I've gone, okay, well, I tried, And now I'm realizing, like, no, it's okay. You can have one more conversation and make it very clear, like, hey, I know I've let this happen in the past, but I understand now that that's really not okay with who I am and my values. And so if you can keep doing you, I'm not asking you to change. I'm just letting you know that if you keep treating me like that, unfortunately, I'm going to just remove myself. And I've had friends for 20 years now that they're on their second strike. I mean, these are people I've literally, when I moved to New Zealand from South Africa, I've had friends that are like there from day one, that I'm going, hey man, 20 years doesn't mean anything if you can't treat me, especially the man I am now, with the level of respect and honesty and understanding that I'm trying to give you. So I'm not going to cause a big fight. I'm not going to diss you, or I'm just going to just remove you. Sorry.
Wow.
And it's like, yeah, it's scary, because you feel like, we get told you have to, loyalty is everything, family is everything, and in some places it is. I just think we get our definition of loyalty and family wrong, right?
I think there has to be a balance from both sides, right? There's no point just showing someone loyalty if they're not, if there's no sort of real, I don't like to say benefit, but it has to be a balance of energies there, right? And I love what you were saying there as well. Just, I feel like it's just very empowering as well, right? I feel like that has, whether it's been intentional or not, given you some more confidence. And I think just to be assertive and put your boundaries in, right, makes such a big difference. And I can only imagine, once you're sort of having those conversations, it is uncomfortable, right? It is uncomfortable, especially if they've been there for 20 years. But that's where, those are the situations, it's those tough conversations we need to chase. We need to chase those. If we've got like an instinct to go, oh, I'm not sure I should say that to them, because that's when you have to actually do it, right?
Yeah, when it's the scariest. What do they say? Behind every fear is the person you want to be. I like that, because I'm like, the person that I want to be is behind this fear. This fear is holding me back from being my best self. So I've got a choice. I can either lean into fear, or I can continue. And the cost isn't apparent at the time, right? You pull away from the fear and you go, well, there wasn't any consequence. But that accumulative effect is probably what starts the separation between who you think you are and who you are. And especially as men, it starts leading to anger. Like you really start getting you're so angry all the time.
Yes, and that's just a surface layer emotion, right? And then when you peel it back, it's like all these things over time.
Fear, lack of trust, lack of safety, lack of self-worth. Yeah, because you knew what the right thing was, and you lied to yourself in that moment, and you just kept the peace or backed down. And it's my big work at the moment. Like, I've got a lot of anger issues. Because the first time you put up a boundary, right, you don't say, hey man, I'm not cool with that. You fucking kick and scream and you fucking throw shit, and like, you're not treating me right. And, that's the first time you put up a boundary. But then, as you do something more and you get more empowered and more confident, and hey, it's going to be okay, you can put up a boundary and you're not going to die. You stop throwing shit and kicking stuff. you start, maybe you're just raising your voice. And then you no longer raise your voice, but you speak in a very stern way. And then maybe you don't even speak in a stern way, you speak in a very calm way, until eventually you get to the point where you can just look at someone. And I guarantee you've met these guys, they're so confident in who they are. You know what their boundaries are. They don't even have to speak them. And if you cross their boundary, they just kind of give you a look. And it's not a mean look, it's not a rude look, there's no anger or anything. They just give you a look and you go, I've crossed their boundary. Okay. And those guys don't seem to be, they don't have a lot of anger issues. They can get angry, but the anger is always appropriate to the situation. And to me, that's the person that I want to be. It's not someone that isn't angry, right? That was my problems. I was never angry. I was always friendly and kind. To the opposite, which is now if you trigger me too much, I'm a monster. To going, hey, anger is an emotion that's appropriate. And it comes from knowing when someone's overstepping your boundary and how much anger to use to correct that situation.
Right, yeah. Well, it's being aware of it, right? I think you touched upon such a great point there, because we've spoken about the compounding effects on pretty much every episode, but mainly focusing on sort of the positives, but it also works the other way. And like you said, if you don't deal with these small pieces, it will suddenly mount up to anger, and you're like, hang on, where did that come from? But I find often it's because, so it's similar to yourself, mate. I was, for so long at school, it was, be kind to everyone, because that's what I've been taught, and putting up with so much shit.
Putting up with so much.
And it's just like, and I think that did filter through to even like later teenage and even like university years as well, right? Because you're so used to just muting that side of yourself, and then it's like I'm a very calm person, but then it's like sometimes I would just have this like random fucking anger, and everyone's like, what the fuck is going on? Like, mate,
what's your problem?
you fucking, what is wrong with you? But then it's like, and that's just, that will happen like once, like in a blue moon, right? But then it happens because all these other times, and again, it's about taking responsibility, right? How, unless you create that awareness, how are you going to grow? Because it's so easy, right? You've had that big outburst, right? And how many times would you think, I'm angry, like, I can't believe they've done this to me, how dare they, they've done this. But it's like, no, they're not responsible for all that other shit that happened before. Guess who is? It's you. So, I think you've touched on something really, really important there.
A big thing that happens after those outbursts as well is the guilt and shame that comes afterwards, which is kind of, for me, was like it's the truth that I didn't want to acknowledge. It's taken a lot of really good therapy from a very wise man to kind of help me see that, like, I would have these outbursts and then I'd feel guilt and shame. And maybe my reaction was too much, right? But that was because it was accumulative. But I was still correct in being angry. So why am I feeling guilt and shame around feeling anger? Well, because I did it too much and all these things. So now I'm too scared to show anger again. Because, I remember the last time that I did it. And then everyone looked at me like there was something wrong with me. I might have even got some words. So you know what? There, I got the proof. I did exactly, I've allowed myself to recreate or reaffirm the belief that my anger is not okay. Right? Because you've had this big angry outburst and it didn't go well, right? You didn't feel good. Everyone around you didn't feel good. Okay. Where in reality, no, it was shifting the mindset of the reaction was a little bit intense, but you were doing the right thing, right? Like, yep, you were correct in being angry. Trust yourself, you were. See if next time you can be a little bit less angry, but you're allowed to be angry. And that's slowly helping to uncondition this idea that you have to be nice and kind and make sure that other people are comfortable at your expense, right?
Well, that takes a lot of, because that is a lot of conditioning, right? It's how we're brought up. It's how we're brought up, and it's like, okay, right, if you're crying or angry, it's like, all right, come on, just calm down, calm down, But I think just again, it's like breaking this illusion of what we've been taught, and I think and that's why I think it's so important. Again, just own what you're feeling, sit through it, and again, we've talked about the accumulation effect, that type of thing. Just over and over time, if you just constantly, because it's difficult, right? Like we're our own worst enemy. I think 90% of our problems are caused by our own thoughts.
Yeah.
But I think over time, if we're just consciously just being aware of them, just like be aware of that voice. Okay, what's the voice saying, and what okay, just observe what's going on up there, and just detach from the emotional part of it. And I think just practicing that every single day, it will be very difficult at first, but then I feel like, again, over time, if you just stay consistent with this practice, you're gonna get out of it, I think. I wonder, in your case then, because yeah, you said you've gone through quite a lot of difficult times since, right? How has your sort of management of this changed over time? Because at first, obviously, it's very overwhelming, and then you've talked about how you've taken proactive steps to get better and that type of thing. How has your management of these difficult life challenges changed over time?
So the big change is that the first thing that I do is I reach out to my network and tell them that I'm not in a good place. Hey, this has happened. And I still feel, to this day, like it doesn't make me feel good. It makes me feel weak. I feel very vulnerable and then it's not comfortable. I feel like I shouldn't have to. And I know that most of my other friends don't, which makes it even more obvious that, but I do it anyway. Because, 10 years ago I had a mental breakdown because I would not. So I've learned that lesson. So the first thing I do is I reach out to my friends and I go, hey, this is what's going down. And I proactively continue to reach out to them throughout the entire process. And what happens is they'll start reaching out to me, right? But the process, once again, it's my responsibility because it's my problem and it's my pain. And they want to help, but they maybe just don't know. So I say, hey man, I've just called up just because I just want to chat to someone. It's a bit of a harder day. I'm really, the stuff's starting to weigh down on me. And I literally just want to have a chat, man, just talk shit with you. Cool. And they'll do that for 3 or 4 days and then, I'll get a call, hey man, it's been a couple of days. I just wanted to see how you're doing. Thought maybe you want to talk some shit. I'm like, man, I've shown them what I need and they are then able to help.
Right.
Yeah. So that's the big first step is acknowledging that I'm not supposed to go through this alone.
And it takes the pressure off as well, right? Because if people know how you're feeling, then you'd have to be conscious of lashing out or that type of thing. Whereas
you can put the fucking mask down, right? And I'm very, very good at wearing a smiling mask, right? It's the most devastating thing. It's the most devastating moment of my life where I have been pretty much ready to kill myself because I just could not see how things could get better. And there I am with a smile on my face and I can't get rid of it. I'm crying out for help and no one's taking it seriously because I'm wearing a smiling face. I'm like, please get off. But it's so trained for so many decades. This must be 30 years of my life just wearing the smile. So it's ingrained in me, right? Every line is a smile line. And I'm like, it's not necessarily true. So when I tell people and I tell them consistently enough, they go, I know you well enough and I know that you smile through the hardest times, so therefore I don't trust your smile. Are you actually okay?
Yeah, that's a huge one. That's why, again, slightly off topic, but that's why I really admire, I think the Germans quite a lot because if you walk around, everyone's just got this straight face, but there's something very authentic about it, and they're kind of staying tuned to their emotions, right? But I think I was a very happy kid as well, and I was just always smiling because that's what you've been brought up with, like very happy environment, and the world's great.
And people like smiling people, right? They make them feel like everything's okay.
Well, that is part of How to Win Friends and Influence People. Dale Carnegie. It's like smile. So I guess in some circumstances, it would make sense to smile because then people gravitate towards you and that type of thing, and there's also this energy, right? But if you're not in that energy, then I think you're just becoming more disconnected from yourself at the same time.
Yeah. I think, for me personally, what I would consider one of the biggest challenges for men that I'm just seeing, and it's really based on my own experience, but so maybe I'm only just seeing it through everyone else, but is just reconnecting your emotions to your experience, right? Like I see so many dudes that are, like just put it aside, right? Like there's just a big disconnect between what they're feeling and what's actually happening, which is like, yeah, the Eastern Europeans, the Germans, like these, like they don't have a good reputation of being friendly. But that's only to strangers. I agree with you, man. Once you break through, once they see that you're actually safe, they open up. I go, that's kind of cool. As opposed to the UK or New Zealand, everyone's super smiley, but you can't get in. You never really know if someone's actually your friend or not. They're just friendly. And that's a bit different. It's a little bit confusing. Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. Especially, the corporate world. That's just like I've got friends who are doing it, and fair play to them. I think some people do embrace that, but it's just like, for me, I'm just like, fuck that. I can't fake an energy. I can't kiss someone's ass. If I don't like them, it's just there's something about that energy. It just really feels wrong to me, and I don't know if you get this as well. Do you find that over time you're very sensitive to other people's energy? Because I feel like that's something that not everyone necessarily has, and it's not to say, oh, look at me, I can do this because I'm so evolved. But then again, I do think like I've noticed in the changes in myself as well. Like I'd hang around certain people and not be aware that they're draining my energy and not being aware of their energy. And I feel like over time, as you grow, you start to really notice how other people's energy affects you. And it's like a consciousness. I don't know if you've experienced that as well, right?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I'm a highly sensitive person, which is horrible. Like I tried to deny it for decades, right? That was the big fight against myself, was I feel deeply, I feel intensely, I feel people's emotions, and I empathize too much. So I can feel what you are, but then, like you say, you have to bury it quite early on, and then in order to survive in the current society that we're in and the current world we're in, you have to bury that sensitivity towards emotions and the outer world. And then, we're all, at least in our circles, right, we're all kind of realizing that we want to grow more, and growing more means actually starting to process some of those emotions and those situations that you couldn't earlier. And so with each new emotion that you unlock, the unfortunate or fortunate side effect is that you start to become more sensitive to that emotion in other people, because we empathize with people, right? That's how we relate. And so as I start understanding that emotion and how maybe I've been acting in a really dark, and I've been using people in a way that I didn't realize I was unconscious. But now I'm conscious of it. But now I'm conscious of it in other people as well, right? I see the mirror, right? So for sure, I definitely notice that as I get more and more comfortable with who I am and starting to understand to a little bit of a degree who I am or how I am or what I am. I start to withdraw from a lot more people because I feel the energy and I see the actions a lot clearer, and I go, no, that's not for me.
Because you're more connected to yourself.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, going out to town now and watching like modern drinking culture, and you go, man, it's a fascinating social experiment, because everyone, they've darkened the room so that no one can really see each other. They've given you alcohol so that no one can really feel each other. They've got loud noises so that you're in this high anxiety state, and you're just like no wonder people are like guzzling alcohol and just trying to hook up with someone as fast as possible and get out of there, because it's not designed for connection. Like you can't really connect with anyone in a nightclub, and
I don't know. I think there's different parts of it, right? Because I think there are certain ambiences and like I think certain music festivals where it does open up your heart and that type of thing, right? But yeah, I think in the
certain substances are better than others for doing that as well.
Oh yes,
Yeah.
But I think, like you said, I think in that purely sort of alcohol scenario, right? This is just my perspective. I think we share the same. It's like, yeah, like where's the connection? And again, it's like in that social environment, you're like the aim again, not to generalize, but I feel like a lot of people are there to, they want to get on with everyone, and it's like everyone's just happy and everyone's just getting on with each other, and it's
Yeah,
like,
put this big mask out, this persona. You have
yeah,
this nightclub persona, and that's what I mean, right? Where once I start getting more and more kind of uncomfortable with wearing a persona, it doesn't fit very well anymore, and it doesn't feel nice to put it on. So then I go out to a nightclub, and you kind of have to, and that's probably what started making me kind of withdraw from it a little bit. Is I see that's the requirement. You can't go into a nightclub and be your genuine self, because it'll just wear you down too quickly, because you won't be able to understand, right? Like it's a political game.
it can be, for sure. The way I've sort of navigated that as well is just sometimes just being my own energy,
Yeah.
and just like, and I think there is an art to that as well, right? And it's difficult, but yeah, it depends like what the reasons are, right? There will be certain sections who are, they are sort of playing a role that night, right? But I think if you're there and you're in your own circle, like, I've been on some nights out, again, completely sober. Just sometimes I've gone solo because I've wanted to see a DJ. My mate can't make it anymore, so I've just gone solo. Ended up just having the best time, just being in my own energy and just having a boogie. And then naturally, people who are on the same wavelength will gravitate towards you. So I think there's a beauty in just owning your energy. And then I think for a lot of people who are trying to make connections and that type of thing, don't force it by draining your energy. Like I think that's the instinct that people want to do is like, yeah, okay, have a couple of drinks and then let's try and get on with everyone, and maybe someone can be my friend. It's like, come on, man, like, you can do this. Just be in your own energy, and people will be attracted to you, right? And I think it does take confidence to get there, but I do feel like over time you can cultivate that.
For sure. Actually, it's funny. I actually went through like a phase where I would do like a month of drinking, and then I would do a month no drinking. And then the months where I didn't drink, the rule was I had to go out to town twice a week and go and party, like completely sober, to teach myself that first of all, you don't need alcohol to have a good night. And second of all, exactly like you said, like, and it's funny because once again, that comes back down to having the right network and the right circles. And that's how you actually started finding them. If people were interested, like, how do I find my people? You go out to town, sober, and you dance like an idiot. And the people that are attracted to that are probably your people. And they won't be the people you expect. Like, you know.
That is a big one, actually. That is huge, because how many times, and again, I think this can sometimes apply to romantic relationships as well, like what you think, the people who you think you should be in your life, or the people who you think you will attract, are actually, they might be what your ego wants. But naturally, you'll find that the best people who are, I say best people, is in the people who are more on your wavelength. Like, they're going to be the ones who, they're not going to be who you expected. And I think just that's where the judgment comes in, something I'm really passionate about.
Yeah.
It's just like, how many times do we sort of judge people because that's what our brain is programmed to do, right? It's like, okay, let's try and make sense of the world. And that's the problem, is that we can be quite close-minded. And naturally, if there is a new experience, it's quite frightening initially if we don't know what it is. Who is this person? What are they going to do? What event's going to happen? So what happens, as you know, the brain will say, right, this person's a good person, this person's a bad person, they've got this intention. Why? Because our brain's trying to make sense of the world, right? And I think just being conscious of that, letting your guard down a bit, and just embracing all these different types of people, right? But again, as I'm sure you've learned, there's a balance to that.
It's funny, you kind of almost making me eat my words. Because I really do agree. Like, maybe I've become a little bit jaded at the moment. Maybe that's probably the side effect of just things being a little bit hard for the last few months, is I'm a little bit more jaded. But maybe it is actually time for me to go back out sober and go and re-meet, because as you're saying about judging people, like, one of my big prejudgments is that beautiful people are the worst people. And it's funny because, like, I don't know where that idea came from. I guess it's just because, like, I couldn't tell you. Like, I've had no bad interactions, really. But like, you know, like say some girl's like a model or something. I'm like, well, of course, this person's going to be vain. They're going to be, you know, they're not going to have their own opinions. They're not going to be intelligent in any sort of way. Like they're just not a good person. And then this other person that looks kind of like a bookworm and stuff like that. Like, oh no, this is my person. They probably, and then yeah, when you just let go of the preconceived notion about who someone should be, and you just kind of see them for who they are, I'm constantly having my ego challenged by like, yeah, what does a good person look like, and what does a good person do? Like,
and there is no answer, right? The universe isn't
Yeah.
good or there is no good or bad in the universe. It's just a way of doing things,
Yeah.
right? And yeah, again, I think it's super easy. But then, yeah, it's also easy to be on the other side of that. I remember for a long time, people looked at me, and I think they just painted this picture in their mind of what I was like, and then it's only after getting to know me that they're like, okay, cool, I sort of understand Harrison. But it's easily done. It's a human instinct. Like it's
this guy definitely steals cars in his free time.
yeah. I mean, it's ridiculous, but yeah, it's just. But then again, you know, it's about attracting the right people into your life, but you need to give them the opportunity to show who they are as well.
Oh man, yeah, I've literally this week had this reminder, like very badly, through one of my longest friends again. And pretty much what I had to remind him, which is the conversation that you always end up having, the conversations that you need to have to yourself through other people. They really are mirrors. And I got really annoyed with him because he was telling me how to live my life. And I was like, I've never once told you how to live your life. You're not doing better than me physically, monetarily, emotionally, spiritually. Like you've got a kid, but you're divorced. Like you're not in a position where you really can tell me what I'm doing wrong. But what you can do is ask me, why am I choosing to do the things I'm doing? Right? Like, why are you doing it that way? Because then you start to get like a completely different answer. And I try to show him, and I was like, look, man, if you'd asked me why, I could explain this. And I gave him a big, long explanation. I went, well, that makes a lot more sense. I went, yes. Instead, you just told me, and I told you to fuck off, right? And I think that's what we do with a lot of people, is that we see them, and we have a conversation in our head about that person, but we've never spoken to that person. So really, we're just seeing a part of ourselves that we hate and using that person to project it back. And then we fight ourselves in our head. And I notice this a lot now. I go, man, I need to be a kinder person to myself. And then I catch myself seeing this person, having this critical judgment of this person, realizing it's myself, going, hey man, it's not that bad. And as a punishment, as a consequence, just go and ask that person why they're doing that thing that's triggering you so much. And man, that's where I start to have interesting conversations, right? Because it completely it drops my ego, it destroys my ego, because my ego went, that is the truth. And then I go, that's just your opinion. And talk to this person just blows my mind. I go, fuck, still got so much to learn.
Wow, that's mine. That could be a huge transformative process for a lot of people. I think I'll definitely give that a go as well,
It's
right?
cumulative though, right? It's one of those.
Oh yeah, like over time, but yeah, and just in that one statement, there's so many things you can draw from that. I think one was, again, not exactly the same, but it was like, yeah, if something's annoying you, I think just, again, slight tangent, but if something's annoying you about someone, don't just expect them to figure it out, right? If someone's making an annoying noise on a plane, for example, right? It's like actually being direct and telling them, hey, do you mind just keeping it down a bit? Because it's like, it's easy to just pinpoint them as rude and obnoxious, but then you're the one building up anger inside, and you're just in your mind, you think that you just getting pissed at them and staring at them is going to make them magically solve it. I think that's an important thing people can do as well. Again, just building up confidence, but then also for your own peace of mind, right? Don't just assume people know what's going on. Like, tell them if something's bothering you. Now, there was the other side of that as well, which was, again, just when you judge people or you've made this conception about them, I think just asking yourself, okay, why have I done that? oh, because he's, you could say, oh, because he's standing a certain way or that type of thing. But then, all right, just, let's give them a chance to explain themselves as well. Not that they need to, but for your own sake, right? I think just, challenge everything. Challenge your own thoughts, challenge your own behaviors. I think that's such a good lesson.
Yeah, I mean, maybe I'll call it my own arrogance. Maybe it's other people struggle with it too, but that has been my big arrogance, is assuming for so many years that I knew other people. I'm 35 years old. I spend so much time trying to figure out who the fuck I am, and I still don't have a clue. So how on earth could I know why you're doing something, right? Even if I've known you for a few years, I still can't know, right? I could have a best guess. I could have maybe I'm pretty accurate in my assumptions, but until I actually talk to you and ask you, like, I don't know.
Oh, no fucking idea. I mean, how are you supposed? You don't know their upbringing. You don't know what's going on in their heads.
So many layers, yeah.
So many.
And it's surprisingly enough as well. Maybe they don't have a clue, but no one's ever asked them, and they've never had to stop and think. Which is why really, really, for me right now, I love and maybe it's pissing a lot of people off around me, but just starting to ask why whenever I get angry. It's just ask them why they are doing that in a really nice and respectful way, I'm actually genuinely wanting to know, because you're teaching me something about myself, because I don't know who you are, and maybe I'm seeing something in myself that I don't know. So maybe you're going to give me the answer to something that I couldn't figure out on my own. Or on the plus side, maybe I'm starting a conversation in your mind. Why do I do that? How long have I been doing that? I've never had a bad reaction from asking someone why in a genuine way. Only from telling someone
Right.
what to do, or telling them like, hey mate, that really pisses me off, you need to stop doing that. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Asking someone like, hey man, like, why are you doing that? Okay, well, it really grinds inside me, like it makes me feel very uncomfortable. Oh shit, sorry man, like no worries. So it started with a why. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, it's just we're on this constant journey of figuring out who we are as well, right? It's like a lot of people think, I'll have this figured out by 30, 40, 50. It's like there's people who are in their 70s and 80s and even they haven't quite got life figured out. I think that's also a big reminder, and I guess as well, your path has been refiguring out your identity, right? Reconstructing that over the years. I think we've got a bit of time. How has that process gone for you in terms of redefining your identity and that type of thing?
I'll try and keep it as succinct as possible. So I spent up until my breakdown, I pretty much spent those first 25 years just being horribly abused, neglected. My dad was quite horrible, psychologically, not physically. And that was the big downer. If it was physical abuse, you could have gotten removed, but it was mostly emotional, and it was mostly along the lines of, there's something wrong with you and you're not good enough. So up until about my mid-20s, I really didn't exist, right? I was running a program that got me through. I ticked boxes, and then I had that breakdown, and I was forced to stop and start to feel and start to really think. And so it's been about 10 years now. Those first 5 years was just trying to patch up I was hemorrhaging emotions, right? From not having felt anything to feeling everything. I was very reactive. I got in very bad relationships. It's only in the last 5 years that I read a couple of really good books. It's like the classic King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. Like that was fantastic because that gave me these lighthouses, right? Everyone thinks oh man, you've got to be the warrior and this is what the warrior is like. No, that wasn't the point. The point is that it's like a lighthouse in the rough ocean, right? You're lost in a storm. You don't know who you are, and you're trying to navigate your way through the storm of who I am. And these archetypes were just lighthouses to help guide me in a safer passage through these rough seas.
What was the book called?
King, Warrior, Magician, Lover. It's a very classic. It's about the 4 archetypes of men. It's very popular I see it pop up in a lot of men's circles and a lot of conversations because it's fantastic. It's the Jungian archetypes. So Carl Jung created these archetypes of the psyche, and these ones are just specific towards men. But it's a book that I recommend that most men that are struggling with who they are and what it means to be a man. I really recommend that book because that was the beginning of understanding that it was my choice and it was this is the rough idea of what this looks like, and then you create your version of that, and that version of that is exactly what it needs to be. That's why I call it more of a lighthouse than like a guide on how to be, right? Because it's not supposed to, it's not a step-by-step, you do this and you become the warrior, and then the magician, and then the Casanova, and then Aragon, and and I read this other book called How to Be an Adult in Relationships. Now, this is a book that I recommend everybody reads, because this was the end of me being unconsciously a child in a relationship. Not to say that I don't still fuck it up, but it was the first book that kind of explained to me that it's my responsibility to explain to people what I want.
Yeah.
A child doesn't say anything. They expect you to know what they want, right? Because that's what a child did. They made noises, they didn't really communicate, and the parent would just intuit what the child needed, right? And so most people that I interact with, you see where this dynamic still continues to this day. They're children. They are children. They want you to just know. The amount of women that have been like, men should be mind readers, and you go, no, we shouldn't. You need to learn how to be an adult.
But it's also our responsibility to give them that space to be able to figure it out, right? That's
of course.
That's what I've realised. Because it's like, it's taking responsibility. Like, how many times have we been like, do you expect me to be a fucking mind reader? But then it's like, actually, right, let's give you the space, because you might not even know what you want. So I found what's helped me, and I don't know if you found similar, it's just like, okay, like they could be annoyed about something. And again, it's like, okay, right, before we do this, let's just sit down. Okay, what's going through your head right now? What's going through? And then you peel back stuff, and then, okay, right, so they say they want this, but they're not getting annoyed about that. There's actually something more here. Yeah, there's layers, right? And it's just, again, it's just opening up that space to, for them to just understand what's going on, and then you can understand what's going on. So, I think there's definitely two sides to that, for sure.
100%. It's not a girl versus guy. There are the same amount of girls that say the guy should read, that guys have to read women's minds. There's the same amount of guys that will just, and you see them like all like anger, and you're like, mate, like use your words, mate.
Yeah.
Yeah, they just get grumpy and they just like sit there and like, rah, and you go, mate, just use your words. Like, yeah. That book was the one that kind of got me to realize that it's my responsibility, and it's also my responsibility to take as long and use as much energy as necessary to ensure that the person that I'm communicating with understands what I'm trying to say. Because that one hurt my ego a lot. I told you and I explained to you this. Yeah, but I didn't understand. Yeah, well, that's your fault, not mine. I told you. And you go, no, man. Communication is when you tell someone what you want and they understand it. That's communication. So that book really helped me let go of that idea that it's their fault if there's a miscommunication, as opposed to, hey, if there's a miscommunication, just stop and go, okay, how else can I say this in a way that they can understand? And eventually it becomes a game. Can I get it to the point where what I've said to you, you can say back to me in your own words, and I go, that's exactly right. And you go, boom, there you go. You've had communication now, right? Yeah. So those two, and that's kind of been the two defining books to help me figure out who I am and redefine what I think my version of a man should be.
Wicked. Yeah. That's a great note to sort of end the podcast, I think. Those two strong book suggestions there. Yeah, I'll certainly be giving them a read. Ian, wow, what a mind you have. I just love how sort of deep we've gone, and I think there's so much people can learn from you and take away from this episode. So yeah, this has been fucking awesome. Yeah, quick one, very lighthearted to finish the show, but as always, we ask the guest for their favourite song at the moment or a song suggestion for the audience. Did you have one in mind?
Oh God.
Most difficult question today.
No, I've been having like a 90s and early 2000s throwback. So I go for walks with my dog and I'm smashing out to Linkin Park.
Wow.
Yeah, I've got like full like 14-year-old angst. Yeah, my favorite song at the moment that I'm listening to is "Given Up" by Linkin Park.
Giving up.
Given up, yeah.
Giving up, okay.
Yeah, very angry, but
Hey man,
it's good for walking a dog, man. I do it in good time.
owning your energy, yeah. I love it. All
Yeah.
right, wicked. It'll be added to the Growth Voyage playlist. But yeah, mate, thank you so much for coming on. It's been
Oh, it's
awesome.
been a pleasure, man. Cheers.
Wicked. Most welcome.